And on you go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest instalment of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, hosted by myself, Craig Gray. It's been a while. Not been on the hot seat now for, I think, about 5 or 6 weeks, certainly. This is my first time since the post-World Cup break, and since the new managers came in as well. So, delighted to be here and delighted to be joined tonight by, a World Cup guru, let's be honest, along with Big Eck, Brian Archer. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
Buddy, I don't know if I can be called the World Cup guru. I think X got that tag, to be honest. He's the one with all the stats and the knowledge.
I think you were just like a sponge taking it all in, but so you became a guru by proxy. And also joining us tonight, David Fraser. David, how you doing, mate?
Not too bad, Craig. Evening, Brian. Evening, listeners and viewers. Looking forward to chewing the cud about the games coming up, and obviously the game that's just been there during the week, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just touched on it there, David. It's a big show. It's the last show of 2022. And also we've got a big match to preview on Monday. Just before we start though, just want to give a special mention to one of our sponsors, and that is Forest Precision Engineering. They are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years, and we're absolutely delighted that they're backing our pod. You can get them over at www.forestprecisioneng.com. And you can also visit the Forest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand. For information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. And just a wee reminder as well, folks, that you can also get us over on Twitter at Gersnet Online, and check out the forum at www.gersnet.co.uk. So, as we mentioned, first things first, before we go into Monday's game, we had a big game on Wednesday that we had to win. David, the manager at his press conference said 3 points, clean sheet. That was it, verbatim. Do you sort of agree with those sentiments after that?
Put it this way, I thought Wednesday's performance was a marked improvement from last Friday's, put it that way, Craig. Seemed to be a kind of a rise in the tempo. Still a lot of issues with the team, right enough. Still a bit shot shy, to be fair. How would you put it? Some deficiencies in midfield that I think that they need to, eradicate before the upcoming game on Monday. So, but look, the important thing was keeping the momentum going. 3 points, clean sheet, as the manager's obviously said. Managed to get Alfredo on the score sheet again. Alec Lowry getting some game time. So, I think it's baby steps, Craig. I think it's fair to say that we're kind of scratching for rhythm. I think Mick's mentioned in numerous pieces to the media that they're searching for rhythm, and I think they can see that the team's maybe looking for some confidence, but they're moving in the right direction. I think it's fair to say that.
No, definitely, and you kind of touched on it there, Brian. It's 4 wins on the bounce, obviously, and that's the main thing. That's what we all want at Rangers. It's all about results. But the manager, when he came into the job and his interview and his press conference in the Blue Room, talked about implementing a certain style. I don't think we've seen that yet. I think most people would agree with that, including the manager. And by the way, that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's only been in the job for a few weeks, and we've had difficult games, and we've got the wins. So you're not going to get that style straight away. When is it, do you think, that we can maybe start to see that style be implemented properly? Do we need the January window? Do we need players to come back from injury? Is it both?
I think it's a combination of both. I think we've seen elements of the style that he wants. I think there's been a marked improvement in terms of our pressing. I think we're pressing more collectively now than we were under Gio. But I still think there's a way to go for us to get to where Michael Beale wants us to be. I think we obviously need to get players back fit. I think Tom Lawrence and Hadji are potentially key to implementing that style that Beale wants in terms of those type of players and the quality that they'll bring. So they could have a big impact when they get back fit. And yeah, I guess it's just time on the training pitch. I think Michael Beale's one of those kind of training pitch coaches where he likes to get on the grass and work with the players and kind of put his ideas into place there. So I guess the more time he gets on the training pitch, the more we'll see his style implemented. As I say, I think he's only been in the job a couple of weeks, so it's no surprise that we're not exactly where he wants us to be. But I think that will come in time as we get players back fit. And I think there's probably more players that are playing through injury than what we know now, in terms of, we know that Lundstrom's had to have injections, and Tav's been, under the weather with a virus. McGregor's been out with a virus. We know Alfie's playing through hamstring issues. So it's not just the players that are out injured, it's also the ones that, although they're playing, they're probably playing a few kind of levels below their capability because they're playing through these injuries. We know Kamara's another one that's, I think Michael Beale said he actually needs an operation, but he's kind of putting that on hold and still playing through it. So that all plays its part as well in terms of the players not being at the level that Michael Beale wants them to be. But hopefully once we get kind of more players back fit and kind of get players over these kind of niggles that they've got, then we can start to see that still being implemented a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And this might be a wee bit of a detour, but obviously you mentioned the injuries there. Michael Beale is someone who, I think in terms of how his press conferences are, Brian, they're very different from Gio's in terms of, let's just say, information giving, if that kind of makes sense. My dad's actually turned around and said that Michael Beale's the most honest Rangers manager in their history, and he's only been in the job for a couple of weeks. But he has been given quite detailed updates on players in terms of injuries and stuff like that, which I think, from a fan's point of view, it's great because, you want to find out stuff about your players. At the same time, though, do you think in some cases he might be a wee bit too honest? I'm just thinking on Wednesday night, he was asked about, obviously, Morelos coming off if we know he's fit for Monday, which is great, but he was kind of saying that, we had to be careful with Čolak and Roof. And if Morelos was out on Monday, then both of them would share minutes on Monday, Čolak and Roof, in the game. So I think there is a fine line between giving injury updates and stuff like that, but then also maybe giving away too much information to the opponent.
I mean, I think nowadays, certainly in the SPFL, we play every team, 4 times a season potentially. So I don't think there's any secrets in terms of how teams play or how teams set up. I think most managers will be able to predict most other teams' lineups pretty accurately in the SPFL, so I don't think he's necessarily worried about giving too much away. I think it's quite refreshing just now that he is so open. And his press conference is obviously a massive change from Van Bronckhorst, but it's probably going to be one of those things that if things turn sour in terms of results, it'll be used as a stick to beat him with, but while he's still winning, then it's seen as a positive. But it'll be one of those things that if he stops winning and the results stop going the way you want them to go, then it'll be used as a stick to beat him with. So it's kind of in one of those no-win situations, I guess. But for me, it's quite refreshing to kind of hear a manager just be so open with the press and just, he seems like somebody that just loves talking about football, and he'll just sit there and talk to you all day about football, which is quite nice. Van Bronckhorst was a bit more standoffish with the press and kind of guarded. So it's a nice change. And like I say, I don't think there's really any issue about giving too much information away, because I think most managers know, their opponent's team selection pretty accurately nowadays. We play each other that often up here. It's no big secret.
No, absolutely. David, one thing that I've kind of maybe noticed the last wee while as well is that, the 4 games in, obviously the performances for the most part haven't been there. And there's a part of me that's thinking, would be, if that was Gio that was getting the results, would we be as, quite forgiving of him? Although the argument on the other hand is that if Gio was the manager, then we wouldn't be getting the results like the Hibs game and the Aberdeen game.
Sorry, I didn't quite pick up your point. Are you saying that are we being more forgiving because it's a new manager?
Yeah, because I think I don't think we've seen a massive sort of change in tempo in terms of the performances. I don't think we look drastically better, but obviously the results have been there. So,
sure.
So do you think maybe if Gio was still the manager and the results were there, then we would be quite as forgiving? Because obviously Gio was getting a lot of decent results in the league up until that sort of last week.
No, I hear where you're coming from. No, what I would say is I think, but I can only speak for myself. I'm not saying this is necessarily a consensus. I think the last time I was on, it was after St Mirren game.
Aye.
I thought I'd kind of mind if it was with yourself, Craig.
I would have been good.
I seem to remember I didn't miss Malik Tillman. Well, see the other night there, I was quite enthused by Malik Tillman's performance. I would say his effort levels have went up at least 10, maybe 15, maybe even 20%. He seems to be more concentrated. So if you can maybe use Malik Tillman's performances as a, holding up a mirror to the team's performance, I would say that the levels have went up. There's definitely, well, I can perceive there to be more effort, or what appears to be more effort. There seems to be more, they're more dynamic in terms of actually, you can see that they're trying to follow a plan, and they're busting their gut to try and, fulfil the manager's wishes, if you like. Whereas under Van Bronckhorst, it was almost like, maybe they would just, they didn't like the tactic that was being set out for them, and maybe there was a collective thinking that they go, we just don't really fancy how this guy's asking us to play. And yes, they were carrying out instructions, but they weren't doing it with the same kind of enthusiasm. I don't know whether that's necessarily accurate, but for my money anyway, I can perceive a kind of a willingness to improve. You would expect that under a new manager. I mean, a lot of them are playing for their futures, but I think there's a general feeling that it's a fresh start. It's an opportunity for guys to come in. They've maybe been cold shouldered with the previous management team, and to come in and try and reassert themselves, because they're players that have got question marks hanging above them. Where it's maybe not necessarily common knowledge in the public domain, but I dare say players will be aware that some there's a groundswell of opinion that certain fans are maybe saying, well, he's coming to the end, should he be offered a contract? Take Ryan Jack, for instance. I dare say Ryan will be well clued up about the fact that a lot of the supporters are maybe questioning the validity of whether he should be offered a new contract. So there's that. I'd like to think that we as supporters would give any manager the benefit of the doubt for getting the results. At the end of the day, we can wax lyrical about liking a style of performance, but it's a results-driven business. And throughout my time supporting Rangers, whilst I've always wanted to play with a certain style and a certain panache, if we could, with flair players, the bottom line has always been the 3 points ever since I've been going to Ibrox, back to the early East. So no, I think you would, if Gio was still in the hot seat and we're still getting the results, I'd like to think that we would afford any manager, kudos for delivering 3 points. But the managers come in, new managers come in, and he's got the team at least looking like they want to make an effort to move in the right direction.
No, definitely. And Brian, David kind of mentioned a point there about obviously results are the main thing at Rangers and whatnot, but we do want to play with a certain style. I think one thing with Michael Beale, and you kind of noticed it going back to the year we won the league, I think that obviously Gerrard was the manager, but we know Beale was the sort of the brains behind the operation, if you will. I think he's seen maybe in the first half of the season the style that he wants to play, they want to play, and it was being implemented brilliantly. I think we won 15 games on the spin. And then it was kind of like, as soon as we had that massive gap between us and Celtic, it came to a point of, right, don't do anything stupid, go out and get the result. How many 1-0 games did we have that season after Christmas? Well, Hibs game in Boxing Day, Celtic game the 2nd of January, Livingston away, 1-0, Kilmarnock at home, St Johnstone, that's 5 1-0s that I've mentioned there. And it was all 1-0s and no 2-1s because we won the conceding goals. But in those 5 games, as an example, the performances weren't anywhere near what they were sort of earlier on in the season. But it was about adapting their style to suit the players and get that result. And at the end of the day, Brian, that's all that matters at this club.
As I think we're not a club that we don't profess to play the Rangers way. We've got teams like West Ham, they talk about the West Ham way and how they play. That's not really us. We're just all about winning. We just wave shiny things at us. That's all we're interested in, is picking up the trophies at the end of the season. We're not really a club that's talks about playing a specific way. We just talk about playing a brand of football that wins and brings us silverware. That's always been the main objective at Rangers than it always should be. So I think, Will Beale's a coach that wants to play a certain way. I think he also realises that at the minute the players maybe aren't at the level to deliver that brand of football. So at the minute I think he's just trying to find a way to win and just get us through this kind of first couple of months of his tenure, and then he'll probably look to embed his style of play a bit more once he gets those players back fit. I think he's very much in the mindset just now of kind of win at all costs, and then we'll look at, the performances will hopefully come after that. And at the end of the day, a big part for me of kind of playing a specific style of playing, certainly the style of play he wants to play, is about confidence. And confidence in that squad must have been rock bottom when he came in. And for me, the biggest thing that will lift confidence is winning matches. So just by us getting these, victories that we have over the last 4 games, hopefully we can extend that, in the upcoming games. That'll lift confidence, and that'll again kind of help with him implementing his style of play in terms of playing the way he wants to play and getting that belief back.
No, absolutely. David, you mentioned him earlier in terms of his performances. Malik Tillman's someone that I want to talk about. I think the ability's always been there for him under Gio, but I think he just sort of blew hot and cold in a lot of matches. I don't think Gio helped him in a couple of circumstances. I'm thinking Anfield and Celtic Park playing him out in the right wing where he's clearly not a winger. We see Bill playing him sort of, he said on Wednesday, he sees him as an 8 and sort of playing between the lines. Tillman says he's either an 8 or a 10, is just round about that is where he wants to play. We've got, I believe this is correct, a £6 million clause on him to keep him. So is that something that, if you were Michael Beale and the money's there, is that something that you'd be looking to take advantage of?
I've got to be honest, Craig, not at £6 million. He's a nice player. Look, I've went on record before. He's a nice player. I like him as a footballer. He's still young. He's still raw. Although he does have guile. I think it's fair to say that. Where he's playing in the pitch, I totally concur with you. I think it's you need to be Colombo to work out the fact that Gio was maybe selling him short there. He was asking him to play.
Yeah.
Max went on record in the same way he sees him in the team, and whilst he maybe not be a 10, per se, how Rangers tend to play, certainly, if you were to put me in the spot and ask where would you play him in the pitch, I would say he's an inside forward. He's not I don't see him as a midfielder, although he does have a knack of winning the ball back quite high up the park. And as I said there earlier in my previous answer to you, on Wednesday night he seemed willing, or more willing than I've seen him in the past, to track back and actually do a bit of the dirty work in the midfield. And that would tend to suggest that he's maybe acutely aware that, if he has got designs on becoming a Rangers player permanently, that he knows that he's playing for a contract. So I like him. I think there would be a ceiling on where I'd be prepared to deal with, and I'd be brutally frank with me. I'd be instructing. If I'm Michael Beale, I'd be instructing Ross Wilson to renegotiate the deal with Bayern Munich. But I do like him as a player. I would be prepared to take him. If it's at the right price, and I think that £6 million is far too much to ask for that lad at his current juncture in his career.
No, fair enough. I mean, we're all entitled to opinions. I'm with the opposite one. I think we should take advantage of it. The reasons that I do is he's young, he's 20 years old, and from what I know, Bayern have a buyback clause, which would obviously be, you would imagine, 3-4 times that £6 million. So it's kind of like, if he's good for us for a couple of years and Bayern want him back, then they would need to pay big money for him to get him back, or we could always sell him on to a different team. So I think he is someone who would have a sell-on value there. But obviously it's a decision for the manager to make. I think the manager loves him, to be honest. I think if the money is there and it's available, I think he'll buy him, to be honest. Because I think you realise, David, just the way that he talks to him, I think he's somebody that he really likes.
It fits the profile, aye. Sorry to butt in again. It definitely fits the profile of the type of players that we want to bring in. And he's to be fair, he's the type of player that Rangers need. But he's unproven yet, Craig. I think it's fair to say that. I mean, he's not done anything in his career. I think it's too harsh to say flats to deceive, but he's still got it all to prove. Now, I would say that Michael Beale was probably, looking at it from Alex's perspective, I would strongly imagine, or I'd like to imagine, that Michael's the type of coach he'd want to work under.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, a football coach as opposed to, a methodologist, that type of thing, a tactician, somebody that looks to, a holistic approach to player development. So, for the player's perspective, and I would like to, hope that maybe his agent sees it similarly, that Rangers might be, a good place, especially with Michael Beale, with his reputation for player development, might be a good place to start his fledgling career in top flight football.
No, I think so. As you say, that's a good point about Michael Beale as well, because he is, as you say, he's not a tactician as such. He's a coach, and if you look at Michael Beale's Instagram and all that, it says football coach at Rangers, and that's what it's always been. I think his sort of main aim, and it always has been, is to make young players better. But no, that was good. So obviously we're going to cut away for the game a wee bit on Wednesday, just before we dive into Monday's game. And I'll discuss it with you, Brian. We had a podcast earlier on Twitter who will remain nameless because we don't want to give them as much attention as we're already giving them. But if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. We'll try and explain the situation. Basically, they put up a tweet talking about the 12 best Scottish football moments of 2012. So in it, you had, things you would expect: Scotland beating Austria in a special night, Mark McGee taking charge of Dundee, and all the comedy that provided us with, where he said he was going to starve himself and turn the heating off, which, to be honest, nowadays is probably the best thing if you want to save a wee bit of cash. Of course, number 5 was Harry Kane missing against France, because there's nothing quite like, getting it up England and taking the mickey out of them about no winning a competition that we couldn't qualify for in the first place. Number 2, it gets better. Rangers reach the Europa League final. And you're thinking, brilliant. But then number 1 is Rangers lose the Europa League final. Yeah, it was great for them to get it, but we didn't want them to actually bloody win the thing. Bonus points for it being Aaron Ramsey to miss a penalty, the latest in a long series of big-name ex-EPL players to come up here and do bugger all. Nice assist versus Aaron, though. When I seen that, I was just like, that just sums the tin pottery of Scottish football up. But I mean, I put a tweet earlier, because I caught them this Twitter page and podcast from a few years ago saying that the whole of Scottish football needs to work together to promote itself. Now, Brian, surely there's nothing better for promoting Scottish football than a Scottish club being in a major European final, and it doesn't really help Scottish football's cause when you've got a podcast that claims to promote Scottish football wanting one of your teams to lose it, does it?
For me, it's just another example of Scottish football hating itself to death. I seen a tweet from a Sunderland fan page the other week. They were talking about us being interested in, is it Ross Stewart we linked with?
Oh, yes.
And they described the Scottish League as a joke league. And stuff like this, I think, contributes to that. Why we're seen as a bit of a joke is, Scottish clubs just seem to kind of dead petty and sniping at each other. I don't expect other Scottish clubs to kind of get the bunting out when Rangers do well in Europe. I wouldn't expect, Celtic fans to be cheering us on exactly, or Hearts fans or Aberdeen fans to be cheering us on, but to have that as your kind of number one moment of 2022 for Scottish football just kind of says it all really about how the kind of petty nature of Scottish football is. It doesn't really bother me. I've seen another tweet just there as well. Can I put it perfectly, is that if you're a Rangers fan and you don't really agree with how we get covered by other kind of supposedly neutral podcasts, there's plenty of other, Rangers fan content out there to get your content.
We're on one just now for the listeners at home, by the way.
I think for me that's what I do. I don't really pay attention to these kind of supposed neutral podcasts, because to me they don't really offer me anything that I want to listen to. So I just get my content straight from Rangers fans, and I think rather than kind of giving them airtime here or kind of complaining about it, I just kind of go down that route, to be honest.
No, that's I think we could all probably take a lesson for that, Brian, but it doesn't half annoy us at times. I mean, I think the thing that really sort of gets to me is, as you say, supposedly neutral. Do you know what I mean? This is a podcast that, you know, it's got Hampden and its cover background, you know, it claims to promote Scottish football as a whole. And there seems to be a lot of these ones in Scotland where it's like, I don't know, at Scotland Talk or at Tartan Army or something like that, right? I'm just making up names now, right? But you know what I mean? Stuff that pertains to Scottish football. And then they will have their wee discussions about Scottish football, but they just can't help but put the boot into Rangers at any opportunity. And this isn't about, you know, people even supporting Celtic or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. It's more just sort of their utter contempt for Rangers, because I've certainly found the last few years, certainly since 2012 and probably before, but I can only go on that, you know, it's not so much that Dundee United and Hibs fans love Celtic and whatnot, they just hate Rangers.
It's one of those things where they say they hate us and they kind of claim we're dead, but yet they just can't stop talking about us. It's, as we've always said, it's all about Rangers.
Yep, and speaking
That's
of teams that, aye,
it's all about the Rangers.
Correct, and speaking of teams that can't stop talking about us, we're playing Celtic on Monday. And obviously that's our next point. Look, guys, it's, you know, it doesn't need an introduction. Biggest game of the season, etc., etc., etc. The New Year games are always brilliant. We've actually had a pretty decent record on them the last few years as well. And obviously it's going to be a poignant day with the anniversary of the Ibrox disaster, which we should also mention as well. Obviously sending our condolences and our thoughts to everyone that was affected by that horrible tragedy. But, you know, back to matters on the pitch. David, I'm confident going into this. I'm always confident going into these games. I think whilst we might not have got the style yet under Beale, I think we've certainly got the attitude and we've certainly got the character to go and get a result on Monday. And when I say a result, I mean a win, because that is the only result that matters.
I'd like to think so, Craig. I think I like the manager's psychology. His comments after the game Wednesday night. Where he said it'll be difficult, and it's fair to say that the Rangers are only playing as well as the opposition. I think he mentioned them. I've refused to mention them by name yet again. So bonus points for Michael where that's concerned. No, to come back to the game, look, it's a must-win game. Would it be the end of the world if they got a draw? Mathematically not, obviously, but you know, realistically, yes. I think that they've got it in them to win. Of course, I mean, the players that have been over the course before. They're a good pair of players for the most part, who certainly under Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale in his previous time at the club seem to have the measure of Celtic, albeit you know they only came up against Ange Postecoglou once in the league last season. But let's break it down to brass tacks here, Craig. We've got to win. It's as simple as that. You know, if the team have got any aspirations of clawing back the deficit and being champions in May, then they've got to win this game. And given the reverse that we suffered at Parkhead early in the season, I think the players owe it themselves and the fans to put on a performance against Celtic and show them, you know, that there's another team in town. Because, you know, let's face it, you guys are long enough in the tooth now watching Rangers that when push comes to shove, we're the only team that can take care of them. You can't rely on Aberdeen, you can't rely on Hearts, you certainly can't rely on Hibs, and you can't rely on Dundee United either, given their lowly position. So, you know, the kind of the landscape of Scottish football is such now that it's most definitely a two-horse race, and we're the only side that can bloody their nose properly and go and beat them. So, look, it's there for us. What more incentive do you need? Your first game, Old Firm game under your new manager, you want to impress. There's players that surely are chanting at that. And hopefully the crowd can get behind the lads and they can go in and get get a result and get 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like I'm not ever going to concede championships or anything like that until it's done. But for me, it's a must-win, not so much to keep the title alive, Brian, but for me, it's more a statement win in the sense that I think this season, could be compared a lot to maybe when Alec McLeish took over for Dick Advocat in 2002, because if you look at that, the league was done when McLeish came in, but he managed to get Martin O'Neill and Celtic's number and winning the 2 cups. Obviously, and obviously that magical Loving-Krans moment. And I just think that, for the last year anyway, since Postecoglou's came in, apart from one game, really that semi-final at Hampden, they have had it all their own way pretty much in this fixture. And, like David said, Michael Beale had the measure of Celtic when they were here. Technically, right now, Michael Beale's unbeaten in his last 7 games against Celtic, and he can make it 8 on Monday. But for me, I just think that moving on for the rest of the season, I think, from a mentality point of view, it proves that this Rangers team can win it. To the Celtic players, it might spook them a wee bit because they're probably thinking, well, look, we've had it all their own way. They've got a new manager, they've got a new mentality. And I think that could be really big heading into February, March time, when it's very, very likely we'll be playing them in a cup final. So for me, more than anything, it's about going into that game knowing that we can beat them and we have got their number.
Yeah, for me, a win does 2 things really. It kind of keeps the title race alive, and it puts a wee bit of pressure on them. They've not been under pressure really for a lot of the time that Postecoglou's been here. They've kind of had it all their own way, largely for me, of their own doing, in terms of, I always go back to the start of last season when we were drawing to Hearts and Motherwell at Ibrox and getting beat with Dundee United, and we could have been out of sight of them last season. So for me, I'd just like to put them under a wee bit of pressure. Let's see how they cope with being chased down, and see if when they've got that pressure of knowing that they need to win every week because we're kind of on their coattails and we're only 6 points behind if we win on Monday, then let's see how they cope with that. Let's see if that might just kind of spook them a bit, and who knows what can happen. And for me, it gives our group of players a shot in the arm in terms of confidence. I think it'd be a massive lift for them to put in a performance and get a good win. I think that just kind of, it lifts the whole mood. It changes the whole dynamic of the club. It makes them believe again that they are. We know them. They're a good group of players. We know how good they can be, and I think a performance and a win on Monday would just kind of give them that belief as much as anything. I think they almost need to believe again how good they can be. And hopefully they get the win on Monday, and that can just go a long way to kind of proving that.
No, definitely. And look, Brian, you made a good point there about sort of putting them under pressure, because one thing that I've noticed with Celtic this season is that in the games that we played before them, so for example, the Hibs game on Thursday, we won that, and then they go to Aberdeen on the Saturday. We know Aberdeen were honking against them, right? But Celtic weren't brilliant either. Celtic struggled against Aberdeen for that game in terms of breaking them down. And it seemed to be that on most occasions, when we have won and we've put them under a wee bit of pressure, the performances have dipped. Now, the results haven't dipped because, as Dave has mentioned, the standard of Scottish football, especially this year, it's a 2-horse race. You're not going to get any favours in the long run off other teams, but the performances certainly have dipped. And, I think up until the last couple of games, the performances were dipping. Obviously, the last 2 games, they were great and whatnot. They're coming back into form at the right time. But I think, as you say, just putting them under a wee bit of pressure. And one guy, Brian, I just want to mention, as Morelos, obviously, he's declared himself fit. The manager today said he was fit. I was thinking about this earlier, and it might be a bit weird or whatever, right? But just hear me out. So, Morelos has started against Celtic under Postecoglou one time, and that was a game that we won with Philander. Now, the games that Celtic have dominated against us, Morelos has only played in one of them, and that was when he came off the bench for the last 20 minutes at Parkhead in September, when the game was done at that point. In the other games that were played Celtic, we've started Kamal Roof, Fashion Sakala, and Cholak up front. Now, Cholak and Roof, in my opinion, are very similar in the sense that they're penalty box strikers. You know, Roof can create a wee bit more, but in essence, it's about getting the ball to them and trying to get them to put the ball in the net. Sakala's a wee bit different because whilst he might not have the finishing attributes and maybe the strength, he certainly got the pace. And the game that he played in May and the game that he played when he came on in the semi-final, he gave Starfelt and Carter Vickers a complete runaround. So it seems that when we're playing penalty box strikers against these two defenders in particular, they're fine with that because it's like, well, all we need to do is make sure that Cholak or Roof doesn't get the ball. But I think with someone like Morelos up there, you know, bashing them about, being physical, you know, we've seen it with a Celtic team that, look, I'm not going to be one of these people that are saying, oh, Celtic are bad, you know, they're like this, that, the next thing. They're not. They're a good team, right? But there has been a consistency with a Celtic team in the sense that when they come up against better sides in Europe, they constantly struggle. And they're not really getting tested in Scotland by us as well. So I think, you know, if we go with someone like Morelos, who hopefully does start, I think that changes the dynamics completely, especially after the sort of better form that he's coming into now under Beale.
Yeah, I think the one thing Morelos has got that Cholak and Roof don't, it's not really their game, is Morelos has got the ability to occupy an entire back four almost on his own. He can bully defenders. We've seen it before. When Morelos is on his game, there's, you know, not really a centre half in Scottish football that can live with him. To be honest, he's that good a player and he can bully defenders. So, you know, that Morelos on that form can definitely be a handful for that Celtic back four. And I think you're right in terms of, you know, there's kind of a bit of a narrative around Celtic that they've been this swashbuckling team that's blown away all before them. And that's not really true in terms of they've had a lot of last minute winners. Now, I know a lot of people will say that's the sign of champions, and yeah, that's true. But, you know, also if we put a bit of pressure on, you know, they might not get those last minute goals and things can turn. So, whilst, yes, they're favourites and they'll get every right to be because, you know, let's be honest, we can't lie in terms of the run they've been on. They've been on a fantastic run. But I think this whole narrative about, you know, they're this swashbuckling team that's blown everyone away doesn't really bear true in terms of if you look at results. So, you know, I think we definitely go in there. We're at home, so we should go in there with some confidence. We're on the back of 4 wins. Morelos up front. You know, let's get the ball to him. Let's let him do his thing. Let's let him bully Carter Vickers and Starfelt and just see where we go. I definitely think we've got the ability to put them under pressure and score some goals.
No, definitely. For me, the key is making a strong start. And I don't just mean 5 minutes. I think you kind of see consistently with a Celtic team that if you can keep it at 0-0, or even if they're a goal up, sort of heading into the last sort of 30, even 35 minutes, they seem to run out of pace and oxygen eventually, and that's when you can hit them. So I think making that strong start is vital. And David, another guy I want to talk about is Borna Barisic. You know, I was a wee bit surprised he came straight back in on Wednesday, but fair play to him. I thought he was brilliant. 2 assists. His first ball in for Morelos. His goal was brilliant. It was like a throwback to a couple of seasons ago. I think it's quite clear that he is going to start now, and I think he was brought in on Wednesday with a view to him starting on Monday. My only fear with that is I think it's great for the balance and great delivery and whatnot, but my fear with that is we've seen Barisic crumble in these occasions before. How important is it for him that, you know, he, you know, just stands up and, you know, makes himself count in this game, especially at the start?
Very important, Craig. Very important. That equally applies to all of them. You know, you mentioned Borna Barisic there. He suffered a couple of really poor performances at Parkhead. So he's got a lot to make up for. But he's experienced and he's played well against them in the past. So, you know, he's shown in the past he can do it. So we would like to think that the real Borna Barisic will turn up on Monday, assuming he's selected to play. I've got slight misgivings about how tight they can keep it. I would go as far as to say the first goal's key in this game. if we can get the first goal, I would, like you have been discussing there in terms of the confidence and the psychological side of it. You know, they've not really went behind too often. You know, so have they been tested about whether their powers of recovery, especially in the Cauldron and Ibrox and all fun games. So, but to get back to Barisic, what I was going to say was, you know, the backs. I think it's fair to say that it's pretty obvious that the backs have been starting higher up under Michael Beale. So, and especially Pataudry, I think you've seen that first half how exposed the Rangers could possibly have been when Aberdeen were at the path a good few times and could have punished the Rangers by scoring goals. But fortunately, you know, Aberdeen having the personnel that they do, they didn't punish us. I don't think that will happen with Celtic. I think Celtic are obviously far better players than Aberdeen, and I think if Rangers are as open as they were at Pataudry, I'm not saying that was necessarily the case certainly Wednesday night against Motherwell. There was aspects of the midfield maybe, you know, not quite being in the right area of the park when there was turnovers of the ball. But if we can keep it tight, and Borna Barisic is obviously key to that. So I would say the two backs, Tavernier as well, we need to keep that tight the first 20-25 minutes. And if we can do that, build a base, hopefully get an early goal and take the confidence that would presumably arise from that. So, look, Borna owes us a performance. He owes himself a performance. I know there's been a lot of noise with his comments when he was back home in Croatia. So he's under scrutiny. He knows that. It's a question of, you know, can the player himself fire himself up? Is he going to be on it? I mean, I cast my mind back to the game that you mentioned when Philip Hollander scored last August. And at the end of that game, Borna obviously went off the park, and it was as if, you know, he was getting waving his goodbyes. And I seem to recall it. He's not a bad game that day. So can he assist? Undoubtedly. You know, that cross on Wednesday night was pinpoint. Alfie couldn't miss. And his overall play was good. Positionally, at the back post, he's always an Achilles heel element to that. The part he's defending. He's not the greatest at blocking crosses, but in terms of one-on-one, there's very few players, certainly in Scotland, that have got the better of him. So let's just hope that he's switched on, Craig, and that, you know, the whole back line can put in a performance. I think it's massive, the fact that Connor Wilson's back and he's getting minutes in his legs, and he's holding the back line together. Obviously, Ben Davies is looking for, you know, momentum in terms of his fitness to try and build it up. But it looks as if there's maybe the startings of a partnership there. So big game, can the players deliver? Obviously, Borna Barisic has been over the course before. He needs a performance to convince the supporters that he's maybe turned a corner, especially in light of his comments or how it was reported in the press here during the week. So, let's hope that he can bring his game to the party Monday.
No, absolutely. And Brian, it was an interesting point that David made there about us being a wee bit open at the back, and obviously he said that, you know, if we weren't playing Aberdeen, we might have been punished. And in fairness, I thought Motherwell on a couple of occasions on Wednesday looked a wee bit dangerous when they were putting balls in behind. I suppose that is true, but at the same time, if you look at the way that Celtic are going to approach it compared to how Aberdeen or Motherwell approach it, Celtic are going to be the type that just lump balls up to Kyogo and hope that he holds it up. I would assume it's Kyogo that's playing, and hope that he holds up and bullies like Goldson or Davies. Celtic like to get out wide. They like to play it to Jota, Abada, Maida, whoever it is out wide. So maybe that might actually suit us in terms of the way that we are playing, because, you know, if we are a wee bit open, it might just be sort of at that sort of point with Davies and Goldson, if you kind of get me. But how do you think we should approach it, Brian? Because I'm kind of in two minds here, because, I mean, look at how we approached the game in April. I think it was Ramsey scores after 2 minutes, place is bouncing, and then they get a bit of a fortuitous equaliser in terms of we mess it up, and then the place just deflates completely. I'm kind of torn between that sort of fast, raucous start, etc., or just sort of keeping it tight, etc. Because I remember when Shakhtar played Celtic at Parkhead, and I thought the Shakhtar manager made an interesting point where he said, in this game, we need to suffer basically for the first 20 minutes or so, and we know we need to do that to try and get a result. And they did that, and they did end up getting the result. Shakhtar should have won that night. So do you think that's something that we should do, or do you think we should go for that more sort of fast start that we've seen in April?
For me, I'm not sure we've got it in us just now to kind of soak up pressure for 20 minutes and then come into the game. I don't think we can afford to sit off this Celtic team. I think we've shown at Parkhead what they can do is if we just sit off and let them have the play. I think we need to go at them from the first whistle. The key for me, I know what you were saying about the April game, that we kind of did that. We had the fast start, but then we just kind of stopped after we got the goal. For me, that's the thing we can't do, is if we have that fast start and we get the goal, we need to keep going. We need to keep on them. For me, this is a Celtic team that they're not really used to kind of having teams go after them domestically. They're used to having it all their own way. In terms of teams generally sit back and let them have the ball and make the play. If we can get after them and press them high and really kind of let them know they're in a game, then for me that will kind of let us see what they're made of. So for me, that's how we've got to approach it. We're the home team. We need to take the initiative. We need to impose our style on them rather than what we've done previously and let them stamp their style on us. That, like we did at Parkhead, we can't afford to do that again. Otherwise, it'll be the same result. I think, and I think Bill sort of hinted at this express promise today is that we need to be kind of right after them from the first whistle. I think that's how we're going to approach it.
No, I completely agree. I think that's the only way we can do it. And as you say, I think the key is not to stop. You know, even if we do lose an early goal, you know, it can happen. Just don't let the heads drop and keep going, because as I say, like when a Celtic come in, even if they've been a goal up, and they have been a goal up with sort of half an hour to go, they eventually run out of steam, and you see better players take them apart in the latter stages. And we do have players that can do that. It's just a case of whether they show up or not. David, I just want to touch lastly on the midfield, because I think most of the team picks itself, but we're maybe a wee bit stuck in terms of that midfield three. I think the back five, we know the front three will likely be Tillman, Kent, Morelos. But the midfield, it's a wee bit, I don't know, because obviously Lowry came in on Wednesday. Can't see him playing on Monday. I've got a feeling that Arfield's going to come in for this. But then it's a case of, you know, do you bring in Kamara, because we know Beale loves Kamara? Do you keep Jack and Lundstrom? To be honest, I don't think Lundstrom's performances have been great for most of the season. I don't think he's been excellent since Beale's came back. So I don't know. I'm a wee bit sort of conflicted between bringing in Kamara for Lundstrom and Arfield for Lowry. How would you set up if it was you?
Well, I would, to go back to the previous point, to preface what I'm about to say, I think it's vital that we compete, Craig. That's key, you know, and so doing that, we've got to match their energy. And that'll not be easy, because they are set up to run like mad. I mean, you've seen Japan, the World Cup, especially Maeda. No, they run through a brick wall, and he's got the whole team playing like that, especially Japanese boys. So we've got to match their energy in the middle of the park. To go back to the previous point I made about the kind of openness, if you like, that the backs. Let's assume that the same kind of general tactic is in play when the backs will be higher up, or as they have been under Michael so far. That then, as you know, places a great deal of onus on the two sitting midfielders to be switched on and, you know, see when there's going to be a turnover of play. Obviously, no turn the ball over and lose it, especially in key areas of the pitch. So that will be where the game's won and lost for me. So to come back to your point about who do we actually pick, I think Alec Lowry would possibly be starting the bench. John Lundstrom and Ryan Jack and Glenn Kamara, who do you pick out of those three? Scott Arfield, I'd play Scott Arfield, but you look at, I'm coming on at Pittodrie, changes the game. And then the following Friday against Ross County out at Victoria Park, he was played out wide in the right, and he looked anonymous, Scott Arfield. But you couldn't ask for a better game for him to come in and play like the seasoned pro that he is. So would you bring him in? I'd be tempted to tweak the team and put 4 across the middle of the park, Craig, to give the backs cover. That obviously places a lot of onus on the forward players. Now, obviously, Tillman's going to play, so does he fit into a 4? Is he prepared to do the dirty work and track back? I think, given his performance on Wednesday night, I think he's got an appetite for that. To my mind, he didn't show under Van Donker, certainly latterly. So the midfield's where the game's going to be won and lost. That's the engine room. It's, obviously where the ball, tends to be for most of the game when you break it down. So getting the right choice of player is obviously key. We're struggling in terms of fitness, match sharpness, general physical fitness. But you'd like to think that, the game being as big as it is, that these players, whoever's picked, will come to the party. I've got misgivings about Glenn Kamara, I've got to be honest. He's had a couple of nightmares at Parkhead. Don't get me wrong, he's played well at Ibrox, especially when he's, a few seasons back when he sold Lego a dummy in the middle of the park at the whole place in raptures. But in terms of the defensive side, which is obviously a vital part of being a midfielder, Glenn's been well off it. So does he come in? Difficult one for the manager. I'd be tempted to start him on the bench, but we need his energy. It's a difficult one, Craig. I would be tempted just to flood the middle of the park, but that's obviously going to have an impact on how we go forward. So it's a difficult one. But whoever comes in, they've got to be at it, and they've got to be fit. If John Lundstrom needs to take another injection to get himself through the game, then so be it. Ryan Jack's obviously scratching for form. He's been getting the ball away because he's obviously looking for that match fitness, and that's not something we'd associate with a fully fit on-song Ryan Jack. He was one of the best players I think I've ever seen, Scott, in terms of a Scottish player at keeping the ball. So we need that. I'd be tempted to go with, assume it's a 3-man midfield, I'd be tempted to go with Lundstrom, Ryan Jack, and Scott Arfield.
Yeah, I'm actually in complete agreement about your midfield three, David. Brian, lastly, what about yourself? Who would you be putting in the midfield?
The midfield, I'd probably go, bearing in mind that I'd like to go for them from the first whistle, I'd go with Tillman, Jack and Kamara as your 3 in midfield, and then Sakala, Morelos and Kent as your front 3.
You're going for it.
I think we need to really get after them from the first whistle. I think Tillman's got that in his game where he can play in that midfield 3 and do the work rate and kind of press high up and win the ball in their half and really get after them.
Mm-hmm. No, well, either way, however we set up, it's obviously a massive, massive occasion, and I think that's a good note to end on. So, to the listeners at home, just want to give a massive thanks for all your support, not just tonight, obviously, tuning in, but for the whole year. As I say, this is the last one of 2022. It's been a great year for me personally as well. Obviously, coming in at the start of this season, it's been a great experience. Obviously, getting to talk about the team that you love, and I think that's why we all do it. Again, guys, the podcast should be available tomorrow on all of your normal podcast providers like iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Just a reminder as well, you can get us over at www.gersnet.co.uk and over on Twitter at Gersnet Online. But all that's left for me to do now is thank our guests for being on. Brian, thanks very much for being on tonight.
No worries, thank you.
And David, thanks very much.
No problem, Craig.
No
Cheers.
worries. Again, thanks very much, guys, for all your support over the last year. It's been a very strange year for Rangers, obviously getting to Seville, winning the Scottish Cup, 2 managers, And we're going to have a lot more crazy times in 2023, I think, as well, under Michael Beale. So thanks very much to the viewers at home. All the best for the new year, and hopefully we can get the 3 points on Monday.